Kit and Kaboodle, and welcome to our Wild Times 2-page spread. Hey, did you hear? There was a zoo that had aquatic animals that tried to make this mass escape. It was otter chaos. All right, let's get started. As always, we're going to start with the left side of the spread. And with this, can you believe it or not, I have not used any Quick Quotes Powder Puff inks. I need you to bring your patience with this one. We have so many tiny little pieces on this one, so I left off the inks to try to save just a little time as you were putting this 2-page spread together. But it's total personal preference, so if there is any point that you want to ink any of these pieces, please feel free to do so. I just left it off to try to save us a little bit of time as we are putting this page together. So with this spread, I was also wanting to show you how you can custom create kind of your own paper when you can't find the one that you exactly have in your mind to use in a particular spread. So let's go ahead and get started. In your kit, I want you to go ahead and pull out that background sheet. So if you notice, we do have just a tiny little pattern in this background sheet. So it's not exactly monochromatic because it's white and green, but that green is really, really pale. So even though we have a bold pattern here, it's really kind of soothing to the eye because that pattern just kind of blends in and makes a great base as our page, for our page, because we have a lot going on here, right? We have all of these words and phrases and colors and patterns. So we needed the base of our page, that foundation, to really be soothing to our eye and be able to hold the weight of all of these patterns. So you'll notice we went with something just a little lighter in its pattern. But I wanted something that still appeared kind of jungle themed as we are doing kind of the zoo with our other various patterns and our phrases. So I still wanted something that kind of gave a nod to the jungle, but wasn't screaming zebra print, cheetah print, you know, something that was a little more soothing. And I thought that the flowers with the kind of the palm fronds in there kind of served that purpose. It gave us a little bit of a jungle feel, but serving as a great foundation for all of this heavy weight, heavy on the eye is what I mean by that. All of this heaviness that we're going to add to the page. So I've already done so, but if you haven't, go ahead and cut off the barcode strip. You'll notice that this again is from Echo Park in their baby collection with those fun rainbows on the flip side. So as always, if you like it, if you wanted to keep creating some pages, just make sure you save that barcode strip so that you would have that and you could know what to order if you needed some extra sheets of that. All right, for our next step, now I wanted something animal print, but I wanted something that wasn't the exact color that you would make that animal print. So, you know, instead of the black and white zebra, maybe I wanted pink and white, or I wanted pink and baby blue. In this instance, we have this cheetah print, and I didn't want the bright orange, the hues of oranges and yellows that you think of with the cheetah, because I wanted something that would be bold enough to stand out as our border here, and I wanted to be able to bring in fun new colors. And I really love the juxtaposition of orange and teal together. I love those two colors together. So I wanted something that would allow me to bring in something that would coordinate with our stereotypical zoo colors. So I went with this teal, or the tropical splash, from My Colors cardstock. So we've custom created 2 borders here. Now the way that we're going to use it gives the illusion that it goes all the way across the page. But this way we only had to create these little 2-inch borders, one on either side. And we didn't have to create this big 11.5 by 11.5 piece because of course we're going to cover up the middle. So why do all that work? So I'm going to show you here what I did to create these. Now, when you die cut something, so you are shoving it through any kind of die cutting machine on a mat, and you take it through the machine, and then you peel off your selected shape, whether that be a letter, a flower, a fern. You're peeling that off, and that's what we're going to use, right? And what's left over is the negative space. So typically we pull it off the mat and we throw it away. Well, imagine if you had to if you had to adhere this border together that I've created, and that you had to glue every single one of those shapes to make that cheetah print. Can you imagine how time-consuming that would be to adhere every single one of those shapes to make that print? So what I have done is I have thrown away those shapes, and what I'm left with is this negative space. And when I saw the negative space, I thought, that's the perfect pattern paper that we need for our border, our left and right side of our page to border our page. So that's how we came up with this piece here. All right, so when you are gluing these together, you notice that there are 3 layers. So we have a dark teal, which is the tropical splash, and then we have that glimmer layer. And sometimes, you wouldn't think of adding the glimmer paper when you're doing your zoo page, because zoo is kind of rough and tough, it's muddy and dirty, and you don't think of glimmer when you think of zoo. But to me it was the perfect color, first of all, so it was the exact right shade that I needed to coordinate with our background. But I love how it gives this just faint little pop of glimmer that when you hold it a certain way really catches your eye on the page. So just the various things that I think about when I'm designing these. All right, I'm going to put this up just a little bit higher here, and we're going to go ahead and glue each of these border strips together. So they each have 3 pieces. So the first we're going to glue that darker teal to our lighter teal. So I'm going to turn this over. Now again, don't worry about getting every little nook and cranny. It's most important to get the edges. So that way when you're slipping it in your paper, in your page protector, you don't get those little edges caught as you're trying to get through the page protector there. This does go a certain way, so let me make sure I have it correct. All right, so there we go. And then I'll pick this up and I'll show it to you. All right, so when you adhere these pieces together, it's going to look like this. So the easiest way I think is if there's that little divot in your light teal, and then you'll notice that you'll have the piece that goes around. So that's how you'll know if you have it correct. All right, so since this is a big piece, I'm going to go ahead and use my tape runner here. Now, when you go to adhere to your cream border, so I needed something that would give it a definite border to really distinguish it from here. So if you look and if you see the difference, it just barely gives just a little bit of a border to really kind of give your eye a place to rest and really kind of make it look like a frame. So that's why we added that cream. So when you go to adhere your border to your cream, we want to go flush to one edge, and I want you to take the edge that has that definite line of that dark teal, that tropical splash color, should be aligned to the edge of your cream, so that you're going to have borders of cream on 3 sides, and that the definite edge of your tropical splash layer is flush to the edge of your cream. All right, and then we're going to do that one more time. So again, we have our top layer, that's that dark teal. We don't have to get every little nook and cranny. We're just making sure that we get the edges. All right, then we're going to adhere that to our lighter teal. Like so. And then we're going to run our adhesive, and we're going to adhere this border strip to our cream. Now don't forget, we want the definite teal edge, that line that appears in that teal, that is flush to the edge of our cream. Again, that's flush to the edge of our cream, so you should see a tiny border along the outer edge there, just on 3 sides. All right, so are we ready to adhere those borders now to our page, so that you can see here how that's perfectly going to bring our eye in and serve as just this fun custom-made frame. It looks like we've custom made our own pattern paper by layering the die cut there. So I'm going to go ahead and run my adhesive on both. All right, so we want that straight edge of our teal facing inward. So we want to make sure we see the 3 edges of the cream along the outside there. So we're going to adhere one on the left side, and then we're going to adhere one on the right side. Again, make sure that that straight edge of your teal is facing inward, and we just want to make sure that they align at the top there. So if you just eyeball it, that it's the same distance all the way across. We're leaving just a little bit of a border along the outside edge, so that they are aligned there at the top. So when all is said and done, they'll look like the same piece going all the way across. If you look at our final here, it looks like that could be a solid piece of paper that would go all the way across. All right, so let's continue layering our background. So in your paper, you have a piece of 12 by 12. Mine is already cut. So you have a piece of 12 by 12 of this brown. So again, yours is going to be the 12 by 12. It's called Jungle Floor, and it's again from Echo Park. It's their Animal Kingdom collection. It's a little bit of an older collection, so if there's anything that we use from that collection and you like it, make sure that you go ahead and grab it while you can. Like I said, it's a little bit older. I don't know how much longer it's going to be around, and I don't know that it's going to be reprinted. But I love this tone-on-tone brown. When I look at it, I think of like a bamboo hut, or, you know, some kind of jungle floor, as it says. And I love that it gives us just a little bit of a pattern, again, without being bold, because it's that tone-on-tone. Typically, with a stripe, I like my stripes to go horizontal. But if you notice this time, I have our stripes, and we're going to go vertical on our page. So the lines of our paper are going to be vertical. And the reason I did it this time is by making it vertical, it kind of sandwiches in because we're going to put so much work into this title that we want to make sure that it's emphasized. So by putting our lines vertical, it sandwiches it in because it makes us look up and down this way. So it really helps us draw us in to look at this. So when you cut your piece, so again, yours is 12 by 12, and we want to cut it at 8 inches. So make sure that your stripes are vertical. So this is going to be your 8 inches here. Does that make sense? So you're going to have an 8-inch and a 4-inch piece. So I pre-cut mine so that you can see what I mean here. So we want our stripes to be vertical, and we're going to be left with an 8 by 12 piece. That makes sense? So then make sure you reserve this piece. We're going to use it for the next side. So go ahead and put that on your paper trimmer. Cut it at 8 inches. All right. So also, once you have that done, also in your pack, you have 2 pieces of orange. So we have that bright orange with the polka dots. You have 2 pieces, so we want to make sure we grab the thinner one for this particular side. So we need the thinner one. And then we're going to need our 8-inch piece. Now, if you look here, I already have adhesive on mine, so I'm going to set it upside down. So if you look at our final here, there's this little tiny border of the orange that shows along the right edge of that brown. It's really thin here. So it's just going to add just a super tiny pop of color, just a little. So what we're going to do is, you can do it one of 2 ways. When we're going to adhere the brown and then slip this underneath the edge, or you can kind of guesstimate where you want that orange to start and where it's going to overlap, and then you can go ahead and run your adhesive and then we can run it along the edge here. I am going to put it down so that it just overlaps my fancy made border here, and I'm not going to push it down quite yet because I don't know that it's perfectly straight. So if I don't push it down, I'm able to kind of wiggle it around to make sure that I can align that straight with our brown here. All right, so I'm gonna we just want to leave about a 1/4 of an inch of that orange showing there. I'm gonna make sure I get that straight. I'm gonna bring it a little closer to me. Old age there. All right. And then as I'm going down, I just want to make sure that that orange is straight. So I'm going to pick it up with my tweezers. Ooh, my brown's not straight. All right, y'all. I might have to stand up for this one. All right. So we are lined at the top. There we go. I think we got it. We're rocking the 50-year-old eyesight. All right, so when all is said and done, this is what your background should look like at this point. I love those 2 colors side by side. Just that little hint of color can make a world of difference. It's just a thin little, you know, when all is said and done, you see about a 1/4 of an inch. Just that thin little sliver can really make a difference though. All right, so we could stop here because we have a beautiful background piece that would be ready for titles and photos. To me, this is really a good foundation. However, I really went overboard with this title. So since I went overboard, and since it's going to take us a lot of work to put together, I really wanted to emphasize that portion of our spread. So we're going to take our pattern papers and we're going to kick it up even more. So we're going to add 3 more pattern papers here to really draw your eye. We're saying, hey you, look at what we've done, right? It's going to be a lot of work. We're going to showcase it. So in your pack of paper, we need the 12 by 12 sun paper. If I can pull it out here. You have a full piece, it's 12 by 12, so we're going to use it on both sides. So for now, we're going to cut this piece that's up here. So from this 12 by 12, we need 5 1/4, 5 1/4. So we're going to put it in our paper trimmer, cut it at 5 1/4. Now save this, because we're going to use it again, by 5 1/4. 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. And again, make sure you're saving your extra because we're going to use that again. So let's go ahead and glue this piece down. And again, you'll notice when you see Wild Child and stuff on the back, it is from that baby collection. So let's go ahead and glue this piece of yellow. When we go to glue it, excuse me, we want it to be about 3/4 of an inch from the top. It's about 3/4 of an inch here, and it's about an inch there. So we're just going to kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be exact, but we want about 3/4 of an inch here and about an inch here. So I will put that down and then bring that just a tad closer here. So about 3/4 of an inch here and about an inch there. And again, we're just kind of eyeballing it, giving it a rough estimation there. All right, so also in your pack, you have this 6 by 6 peach. And again, I love that it's not necessarily the exact color you would think. You would think of this should be in browns, in greens and various shades of greens kind of thing. And I love that they put a twist on it and made it a total different color. It also worked perfectly because we're staying with that shades of orange that go perfectly there with our teal. All right, we do need to cut this down as well. We need these both to be the same size. So 5 1/4. And you won't need the extra for this. So 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. And again, we don't need the extra. We just need to make sure we get that down to 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So when you adhere this, it's going to go flush to the bottom of your yellow and then over about a 1/2 inch. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. It's just going to serve as the underlayment here for our words. So you can always shift words a little bit to make sure that they fit where your placement is. So we're going to go flush to the bottom and over, about a 1/2 inch or so. All right, we got one more here that we need to adhere. So after we get these two pieces, you have a piece of floral. Let me pull them out here. So you have 2 pieces here. You have 2 pieces of that floral. So we want to save the thicker one for the right page. So we want to make sure we're using the thinner one. So you have 2, make sure you're grabbing that thinner piece. Isn't that fun on the back side? I love that green. All right, and we're gonna run our adhesive. We're gonna look at the floral side of the paper here. So when we adhere this, we wanna make sure that we just see just a little bit of that yellow. Just a tad bit of that yellow showing. Let's go over just a tad more here. And I think a little further. Really, it's best to go from the top. It's just from my angle, it's hard for me to see that top of the page. All right, like so. And now see how that's how we got to bring in the yellow as well by adding that little pop. Now you look at this, and we went from having this great backdrop that would serve our photos well, our title well, and now you look at it, and when you look at it just like this, it's not exactly what you would think to put together for a page, right? So you look at this and it looks a little less thought out, really, when you look at it just like this. But we know this works because we've seen the final product, and we see that our title really pops because of the placements of papers. So sometimes you just have to cut paper and you just have to move it around and see what works, and try different papers and see if this works. And you have to lay out your title, and you might lay it out and you're like, oh, that top paper doesn't work, and you have to peel it all away, and you put a new piece in, and you got to lay out that title again. To me, that's part of the fun part of the process. But know that I have already done all of that a dozen times, maybe a half a dozen times. And you see the final result so that you don't have to think about all of that. You can just put the title on exactly how the sample is. So I tell you that just in case you want to learn how to do that on your own. Sometimes a lot of it is trial and error, and while it has no adhesive, kind of moving around and making all of those guesstimations until one really looks exactly like you need it to look. All right, so we did put the photo mats in black to kind of give that bold border. I'm going to go ahead and cut the photo mats and then just lay them here. I don't want to glue them yet because they really kind of work in tandem. Now, if you don't have your photos, it's perfectly fine to go ahead and put your title. The way that we have the page lined up, your title really needs to go here. So all of this can move around if you need your photos to be different directions, different sizes, but we really need to go for a title to go here. But I'm going to go ahead and cut the photo mats just like that, so that as I'm ready, I can just go ahead and glue those down, and I have a finished product at the end. So I'm going to start with that largest mat, which is 4 1/4. I didn't eat my Wheaties this morning. 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then when I cut that 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, I'm left over with a piece that perfectly cuts that 3 1/2 by 5. So if you cut this one first, that leftover piece is perfect for that 3 1/2 by 5. So we have the 5 by 3 3/4. So that one strip of paper gave us both of those mats. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut that tiny mat as well. And that one is 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of lay my photo mats so that they're about in the place that I think they're going to go, but I don't want to glue them because I know that depending on how all of my wording gets adhered, we might need to make some adjustments. So I am just going to lay them in place for now. All right. All right, so are you ready? So now we have all of these words to put together. So you have a packet of all of the die cuts for this side. Let's see if I can pull out mine here. All right. Look at all of those tiny pieces. There are so many pieces of die cuts in this little baggie. So I'm not telling you what to do, but I might only pull them out as you need them because there are so many. Now, I know there are some people who will keep like a muffin tin on their scrapbook area, and then as they pull these out, they put them in various muffin tins so that, you know, the little teeny dots of the eyes, you can tell where they are in that muffin tin. So that's something that you might be able to use as well. I've known them to have both sizes. They have the larger muffin tin and then like the mini muffin tin, or you could just do the large one, whatever works for you. For me, I'm just going to pull it out as I need it. So I'm going to start with the word us, because the us, the crazy, the loud, and the love all are multiple layers. The rest of those words are just single layers. So I'm going to start by adhering the double layers together. All right, so for the word us, I need to adhere obviously the white to the yellow. I am a huge fan of this font. That's kind of been one of my go-tos recently. You've probably noticed it a lot. If you've seen any of the samples from our Alaskan cruise, all of our titles are made from this exact same font as well. And that font is called Elfie, E-L-F-I-E, Elfie. And it is a design space font. And to me, you could use it on so many different things because we've used it here as the in the jungle themed. And then you'll notice with the Alaska, we've used it on all the Alaska cruise destinations. All right, this is going to get a little tricky. Now I'm going to pull out the word crazy. So maybe I should have said it's going to get a little crazy. All right, I'm going to shove these letters back in because I know me, I will lose them. And I'm going to just deal with what I need. All right, I'm going to pull these apart here so that you can see the layers. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere the white layers to their orange base. So for future reference, when you are doing our virtual classes, if you like to craft along, so as I'm giving the virtual instruction, you're actually putting it together with us. If you tend to be one that needs a little more time gluing the layers together for pieces like this, just go ahead and do that in advance with those little pieces there. That way all of those letters are already adhered, and that will save you a little time as we go. I'm pretty quick at it, so I know when I am putting these things together that if you need a little more time, it can be frustrating to keep up with me. First of all, this is not supposed to be frustrating. This is meant to be fun. It's meant to be relaxing. So keep that in mind. If you are getting frustrated that you can't keep up, it's okay. Do what you can. You can always go back to it. You can go back to the project. You can go back to this video. It doesn't, it's not a competition. I'm constantly saying that when I'm teaching a class and they're like, I just can't do it like you do it. It's not a competition. We're a team. You know, we're doing this as a team. It's not about who wins or who gets done first. So if you find again that you're frustrated, it's okay. Do what you can. Put it aside when we move on to the next page, and then go back to it as at your leisure. Again, because I tend to be pretty quick at my gluing. All right, so after you get the layers of crazy together, makes me think of that Patsy Cline song, right? Crazy, I'm crazy about you. I love me some old country. Old country reminds me of my grandma. When I was young, I was the only grandchild for like 10 years before the next one came along. My mom got pregnant at 18, so she was 19 when I was born. My grandma at the time that I was born was 37. So I had a very young mom and a very young grandma, and man, were they fun. I would go to my grandma's house and we would jam to that classic country. So every time I see crazy, that's what I think of. I think of that Patsy Cline song, and and singing and dancing with my meemaw in her front room there. All right, so for the word crazy, we did create this layer here, this shadow. And it was twofold. We wanted it to be a little more bold, so we gave it that black border. But that also gave us the ability to attach some of the letters so that not everything was individual. Now you'll see that you're still going to have a few that are individual. And did you notice it also gave us the ability to attach the dots of the eyes? So it was twofold reasoning there. All right, it really doesn't matter what order that you layer your word crazy. You can just start with the C and go along. You can start with the Y and go backwards. It absolutely doesn't matter. I'm going to go random because I'm feeling a little crazy. So we're just going to go random here. I started with my R, went back to my C, and now I'm going to go finish out my word here. All right, 2 more letters. And then we'll have our last. I am using a really quick dry adhesive. It's good and it's bad. It's bad because if you make a mistake, it really rips the paper to bring it up. It's good for moments like this. So it is down, it is ready to go. They're not going anywhere. So when I'm doing something like this, to me, it's great because I really like that quick drying time. Now, for ease, I'm going to go ahead and put it on my banner. You're welcome to wait, but that way, to me, they're already attached. It's going to go just like that. If I can pick that up and bring that a little bit closer. So, make sure that you pull out the correct banner. Every banner is a little bit different in length. So make sure you pull out the correct one, and it's going to go under the word crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my adhesive and only put it down the center, like so. So my adhesive is only down the center of the word crazy, and then I am going to adhere that to the banner. See, just like that. So that way it's all ready to go when we go to adhere it to the final steps on that page there. All right, so next we have loud. And man, do I know loud, having 3 boys. So let's pull out the pieces for loud. I'm going to put in what I don't need and just pull out the pieces I do need. All right, I think I got them all there. All right, the same exact thing that we did with Crazy. So you'll notice that we gave you the black layer so that we could attach some of the letters. And we also were able to attach some dots of eyes. You'll need to fill in, but a lot of that is already there for you. And the same as the last two, we want to adhere the white to the colored base first. So I'm going to adhere the white L to the teal L. Also, the joy of this page is that it doesn't have to be jungle themed. It could be, because of our phrase, this is us, a little bit crazy, a little bit loud, and a whole lot of love. It really could be like any family gathering, any kind of family photos would work well with this. It doesn't have to be pictures at the zoo, even though we kind of have the zoo paper and theme going on. Maybe your family is a zoo. You know, it's all crazy. So just something to think outside of the box. It doesn't necessarily have to be photos of you at the zoo. All right. And if you are one that you really want your pictures to go exactly, that means you just have to plan a zoo or a jungle themed family gathering. Make everybody wear fun little t-shirts. You could be, wouldn't it be fun to do some kind of potluck where everybody does a spin off on what an animal would eat? You know, like lions are meat eaters, so you could have the steak as the main, and then you could think and search for, you know, what does an elephant eat, and use the ingredients to make some side dish. How fun would that be? What a fun themed party. All right, just a couple more letters. And then we just have one word left to go. All right. All right, and then just like the first time, I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the banner. So if you kept it all straight in your page protector, you'll notice that we kept the banner with the particular word that it was to go on. So if you have them all together, that really helps kind of distinguish which one goes where. And again, I'm just going down the center because I don't know the exact placement of my banner here. So if I just go down the center of the word loud, I know that I'm going to be safe because it's going to go. This one looks like perhaps just a little lower than center. Just a little bit lower. All right, like so. Can you see that there? All right. We're going to set that aside. We have one more to go here. And then we have all the little letters that we get to adhere to our page. Don't hate me, okay? Don't hate me. Lots of pieces for this one. Such a beautiful result though, right? This is one I think you could frame. So much time and effort. It could be the cover page of your scrapbook too. You know, maybe if you're doing, maybe you're doing a baby album. So you could have your 1 month and 2 months, and you have all of these fun little baby animals, and this could be the cover page of that album. Maybe it's just a general everyday life kind of thing, and it could be the cover page, again, of your family. You could, if you're doing, if you have photos of just one person here, don't use the word us, use the word me. Maybe you have one child, and maybe that child is crazy. So maybe this is me. That font there is Elfie, E-L-F-I-E, in Design Space. So you could change that word us to the word me, and this is me. And then you just have you just have a child, you just have a spouse, whatever, a friend. And you could change that really to meet any kind of photos that you have. All right. All right, so now once we have our letters, and you notice once again, we attached the word of to our black base. That black base is really the saving sanity of this page, because there are so many pages, so many pieces. Having even just a few of those already glued down by the way they are attached really makes life easier there. All right. Almost done. 2 more letters here. And again, I realize I am pretty quick. So if you don't get all of your letters glued down to the black bases, it's okay. You can go ahead and put just the black layers down, because you can go ahead at any time then come back and add those colored top layers. So again, don't get frustrated if you're not as quick. I tend to be a little Speedy Gonzales when I'm gluing all of these layers. So don't worry, don't get frustrated. You can leave for now. You can leave your white and your colored layers, and then we can just glue the black layers to our base of our page here. All right, taking my adhesive, running it just down the center. Make sure this time that our of is what we're really looking at there. Make sure our of fits onto our banner. All right, so that our banner looks just like so. Perfecto. All right, there are a few flowers that have various layers. So I'm going to pull out the ones that have the various layers, leaving everything else in there. And I'm going to go ahead and glue those layers together while we have this open space here before we bring our page over. So we have this tiny flower here. That's the teal and cream. So I'm going to adhere those layers together. And then I like dimension. So I am going to glue these 2 circle centers together. And then I am going to use a 3D pop dot. There we go. To adhere this circle center to our flower. I think I'm going to try, don't even try it. Let's just use our micro mini dots. That way I don't have to cut it so small from the roll. And I am just going to toss on 3 micro mini dots. Love these things. All right, see if I can get these backs off. I think I'm just going to do 2. And then pop off that center there just to give it just a little more depth. Total personal preference. I know there are several that like not so lumpy pages. It's all good. All right, for this flower here, look at that tiny zebra print. Isn't that incredibly intricate? It's just amazing to me how intricate that little cut is and how well it can cut. Now I want to make sure that we see it, so we're going to take that zebra print and attach it to the white, and then I'm going to attach that to the center of our flower. Perfect. All right, are we ready now for the fun? Now we get to put this page together. So let me bring that back over. All right, so I'm going to start at the bottom and kind of work my way up. Now, if I didn't have the sample beside me, I would lay everything out first and then start gluing, because I don't want to start down here and then run out of space at the top for things to fit. But I have the sample here, so I'm going to go ahead and glue as I go. And I'm going to start at the base with Of Love. And you'll notice that we have these two light blue flowers here, so I am going to pull those out of our packet. While that's laying in place, I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. Again, I'm just going to go down the center, just down the spine of the flower. And using that as my guide, adhere that first one, and then we're going to repeat that process to adhere the second one. And you could, if this was too much, if you need a little more space, you could leave those off. I just love that, just a little tad of more visual interest there. I think I'm going to use my runner since we have that banner. All right, so it's going to go across the bottom like so. Now, a whole lot is also on a banner, so you should have one banner left in your packets. So I'm going to adhere the banner first. And it is pretty close to the word love, so make sure you get your spacing right here. Again, we don't want to get to the top and don't have enough room. And that's going to serve as the base of a whole lot. So I'm going to pull out those letters. And I'm going to space them out, and then I'm going to adhere them, just to make sure I have them right there on that, centered on that open space. A hole, and then we should have somewhere in here an L. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna snap that and set it aside. That looks about right to me. You know what? There are 2 A's and 2 E's, and I think that I need for this, I think I need the smaller A. So there's 2 A's, and they're just a tad different. Does it matter? No, it absolutely doesn't matter. It's gonna look fine when all is said and done. That is just the perfectionist side of me. See, there's just a little tad of a difference there. If it's already glued, again, don't worry about it. It's okay. All right. Since we're not doing too many, I'm just going to glue them one by one there. You know, let's don't, because we're going to have more little letters at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand out and make a little puddle of adhesive. Just little. Don't forget. Can't shove it back in. And then I'm just going to lightly drop it in the puddle of glue, take off the extra, and that way it will go quicker here for us. Drop it in the puddle, brush off the extra. All right, one more letter. Let's use the right letter. All right, drop it in the glue. And we have the word lot. Same thing here. Drop it in the glue. Brush off the extra. That is so much quicker and so less messy when doing those little tiny letters. All right. So I'm going to work my way up. So the next thing is going to be a little bit loud. And the bottom of your word loud is going to be, again, pretty close to the whole lotta. Let's see. I think this is going to end up having to move over. There we go. Just like that. Again, it doesn't have to be exact, but I want a little bit to primarily be on the orange. So I realize your A is going to share the space, but we want to be able to see the word So I want to make sure that it's bumped over enough that the letter A won't just totally be lost in these flowers here. So we need the A, and we're going to need the E. So we'll need the A, and we'll need the E. But isn't that nice how that's all we have to glue? We just have the two letters for that whole phrase. So we're not going to need too much glue here because we only have the two letters. You'll also notice when I glued this, I didn't add the extra glue to the letters that were attached to the black. You can if you want. My thought is it's going in a page protector, so I didn't want to take the extra time because it's not going anywhere. That dot of the I is attached, but you're welcome to if you wanted to put a little glue behind there. All right, so now we have crazy. So again, if you want to, you can put a little bit of adhesive behind those black letters. And they're all pretty tight together. It's all pretty tight. All right. I'm going to move that just for now so you can see my letters. And again, we only need the A and the E. Yay! So we need the A and the E. All right. Get the A. Well, all right, in the E, and we're in the home stretch. We're almost there. This is a piece of work, isn't it? It really is. All right. So I'm going to run my dry adhesive. It's probably a little off the screen, but since the word us, since those letters are larger, I'm going to run my dry adhesive. I use the dry adhesive when I can. That's my first preference. I think I could go just a tad higher. All right. I'm going to go ahead now and adhere my photo mats, and then we can finish out with those few little die cuts that we have left. But now I pretty much have the spacing as I think it's going to work with our title. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put down the bigger mat. Let's see, it's going to go about there. All right, so when I go to put down my smaller mat, it is going to be a little hard to see the word bit for now, but once we get that photo in there, so you'll notice how it's hard to see it now, but once you get that photo, like you can see here where that white is, you'll be able to see the rest of that title if you're doing it exact. All right, so there's another few leaves in here. Let's pull those out. And we're gonna fill in that gap. So it's really gonna depend on your photos. But if you look at it now, if you put the photos exact, there's a bit of a trapped space in there. So it's the center of the page which really makes it emphasize. So we needed something to kind of fill in the gaps here. So it's going to depend on your photos if you need these pieces here or not. But the way that my photos are laid out, we definitely do. So I'm going to lay the flowers in place and then go ahead and glue my leaves using kind of those flowers as the guide. Again, I'm only going down the spine of the leaves, no need to go all the way out to the edges. And now I can glue my two flowers. All right. One more here, and then we'll add this is. And then this will be complete. It's a doozy, isn't it? It's probably the longest page, so the most amount of time ever taken to put together one of my pages. And I know it's because of all of these layers. So again, if you ever wonder why kits are priced the way they are, think of all of the human beings that had to cut all of these little tiny pieces, and that's all done for you. And look, when all is said and done, this bag, and I didn't pre-check it, I never pre-check when I am getting ready to do a class. I'm doing it in the spur of the moment, just like you would be. Every single piece is been in this kit. It truly is. They're amazing. They are miracle workers. When it comes to my crazy designs, my crazy ideas. Now, I do get the you really want us to do this kind of thing. But look at the amount of pieces that they have put into this. And I wasn't missing not a single piece. All right, one more tiny dot. And there we go. Look, we did it. We did it. It took us an hour, but we did a whole beautiful page that absolutely could be framed. You should pat yourself on the back because this was a big one. So kudos to you for getting all of that accomplished and done. Truly, this one is the creme de la creme, probably, of the amount of pieces. So definitely let me see it once you have your photos on. I would love to see it. Okay, who needs a coffee break or a restroom break? I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll come right back, and we'll finish up with the much easier right side of our spread. All right, let's get this second page started. But first, do you know why lions aren't very good storytellers? Because they only have one tail. So, as always, we're going to start by layering all of our pattern papers to serve as our beautiful base for our title, our die cuts, and our photos. So I used the exact same background paper for the right page as I did the left. So let's go ahead and cut off that barcode strip. And that's going to serve as our base so that it's that one continuous flow all the way across. All right, so now we need to layer all of these papers. So if you remember, we gave you that 12 by 12 sheet of paper of the yellow sun. So now you have the piece left over from when we did that corner piece. Remember when we cut that out? So now we have this leftover piece here. So from this piece, we want to be 5 by 10.5. So let's first cut it to 5. So we're going to put it into our trimmer and cut it at 5 inches. So we cut it at 5 inches. So you don't need this piece anymore. We can throw that away, or you can save it for an additional page to coordinate. So now we have 5 inches. And now we're going to cut it at 10.5. So we'll have a 5 by 10.5. So that's 5 by 10.5. So once we have this cut to size, we're going to go ahead and adhere it to the page. I'm going to turn this over here. Run our adhesive, and when we go to adhere it, it's about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch to an inch from the top. Mine is slightly left of center, like so. All right, so we've done the top. Now we're going to come down and we're going to do this bottom piece, and then we're going to fill the gap in the middle. So also, if you remember from our first page, we gave you a 12 by 12 sheet of the brown that we used, and we still have that extra piece. So the extra piece is what we need to cut for this bottom portion here. We need it to be 3 inches, so let's cut that first. We're going to cut it 3 inches. So at 3 inches. So again, now you have this barcode strip with a little paper, and we don't need it, so you can save it if you want to do another coordinating page. But now we want to work with our 3 by 12. And from our 3 by 12, we also need to cut it down. So we're going to cut it down to 10.5 inches. Just the same as our yellow, 10.5 inches. All right, so when we adhere it, we just want to make sure that it's aligned with our yellow. All right, so I'm going to flip it over, run my adhesive, and we're going to add that, to the bottom here. It's about, I don't know, an inch from the bottom to guess, around an inch. And again, we want to make sure that it's aligned pretty close there with our yellow. It's okay if it's not exact. All right, and now we're going to be able to fill in the middle here. So next we're going to work with that orange. So we have that same orange that we used on the first page there. This is a bit of a thicker strip, but we do need to cut it down. So it's already the inch, but we need to cut it down to 11 inches. So we need it to be 11 inches long. So snip off that extra inch. And now we have that 1 by 11 piece. I'm going to turn that over, run my adhesive a couple times. And I'm going to adhere it flush to the top of our brown and centered, like so. So if you can see here, it's right at the top of our brown. It's, you know, they're not overlapped at all. The orange is on our background, so they're just butted up tight together. And then it's going to hang off just a little bit of both sides of that brown. All right, so once you get the orange, now we have that floral. So go back again to your paper stash here, and you'll notice that the orange and the floral are the same. So what do we need to do? We need to cut this down to 11 inches. So it's already the right width. We need to cut it to 11 inches. So we're going to snip off that extra inch. Run our adhesive. And then it's going to go exactly to the top of our orange. And that will fill in the middle. Isn't that pretty? I really love how these are two totally different paper collections, but I love how that shade of green in the leaf is almost identical to our background. Isn't that gorgeous? How that really pulls in that background color. And then of course all of our colors here really help coordinate our oranges and our yellows here. And then we're going to add this kind of unexpected twist of teal like we did on our first page. All right, we do have this little thin strip of brown down here. Might be a little hard to see the tone on tone in the camera. But we do have just that little strip of brown. So let's go ahead and adhere it. That way our base is totally complete, and we can just add everything on top of that. So that really thin brown piece, we're going to cut it down to 11 1/4. 11 1/4. So it's just a tad bit longer than the other pieces. And I like to do that again just for visual interest, so that it's not perfectly contained in this little box. We're going to go on top of the brown, but we're going to leave just a little bit of that striped paper showing underneath. Just a tad there. And we are going to adhere it all the way across, like so. And add just a little bit. See, it's just enough to add just a little bit of an interest down by where our title is. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut my photo mats. You can skip this step because this title is really going to be well served at your bottom because of this dark brown. I would definitely put your title at the bottom. So even if you need to scrunch it tighter so it only takes up a corner, that way you can put photos all the way around here, that's perfectly fine. But I would really keep your title down here where that brown is. I'm going to go ahead and cut my photo mats. I'm going to cut the 4 1/4 mat first because that extra will allow me to cut this photo mat. So I'm cutting 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. So 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 will make that mat. And then my leftover piece I can cut at 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. And that will give me that photo mat. So all I have now, I'm going to go ahead and cut my 3 1/4. Put that aside by 3 1/4. All right, and then I'm just going to go ahead and adhere these down so that that's all taken care of. Because again, we know that all of that title needs to be down there by our brown paper. Alrighty, so don't put adhesive where the two photo mats overlap if you're doing it identical and don't have your photos yet. That way you're able to slip a photo underneath if you need to. It just gives you the option of doing that. Alright, one more photo mat here. Alright, just like that. Alright, now we get to do the fun stuff, right? But you can just tell here how it's all going to come together and how we have really layered all of these papers to give us a good base for our photos and our die cuts. Alright, so go ahead and pull out your bag of die cuts here. And again, I didn't do any Quick Quotes powder puff inks because of the time-consuming pieces that we have in here, but you're absolutely welcome to if you want to do that. All right, I'm going to pull out our flowers. You know, I obviously love flowers in my pages. I tend to put flowers on almost every single theme that I do. Regardless of what that theme is, I tend to add a lot of flowers. I think they're just a great shape, so it doesn't necessarily have to be girly, I don't think. I just think it's a great shape to use. But I tend, obviously, to use them a lot in my pages. So with this circle center here, if you remember from the first page, I'm going to use the micro mini dots to pop off that circle that makes the center of the flower, and I'm going to do that twice because there's two of these flowers that are identical. They're just a little bit different in size, but other than that they're the same, so I'm going to treat them the same using the micro mini dots to give that just a little added dimension. Okay, since the other one is identical, I'm going to go ahead and pull that out too, so that we can do both of those at the same time. All right, same thing. You will notice too that I am mixing cream and white. Usually when you have one or the other, that's what you tend to stick with. You don't mix the cream and white. You see it? I do it all the time. It works. It really can work. All right. And then I'm going to adhere the two layers together for our circle center. And then I'm going to pop that off. So I'm going to go back to my micro minis and pop off that circle there. Ah, I got stuck to the tweezers. They're so tiny. There we go. All right, peel that off, and then we'll have those two flowers down. All right, so those are done. All right, for these, so again, we have that zebra print. So if you remember on our first page, we had that really tiny version. So I thought it would be fun, since I love to use flowers, why not do something fun and interesting in the center of the flower that kind of ties back into the theme. So if you remember when we did Candyland, when we did flowers on our Candyland page, I actually made the centers of the flowers candy. So I think that's part of the joy of flowers. I think they're so universal that you can add whatever you want in the center of the flower to make it work with your theme. Just like we did here with our zebra prints and just like we did with the Candyland. All right, so for this circle center, so for that one, if you notice, I just adhered the center flush because a lot of it's going to get covered up. We're just going to see a little portion of it there. But for this one, we will see that entire circle. So I am going to use some pop dots for this circle center, if you would like to do that as well. These are a little easier since it's a little bigger. I'm going to use the big roll here with my Teflon Tim Holtz scissors so that we don't leave any adhesive stuck to our scissors. All right, then we're going to peel it off and stick that in the middle. Like so. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put together the wild and the times. So I'm going to do that title next. So we have times. Don't forget the little dot of the I there. Go ahead and glue the black and white layers of that title together. If you notice, I did use the same font for the word times as I did over here for all of this phrasing in between here, so that we brought this over and really tied it over here so that it's the same font used on both pages. I also like that it's cursive, which means we can connect the majority of the letters. Makes it a little easier for you and for us to get all of that together. All right, so now for our fun title. So if you remember on our first page, we custom created this cheetah print border to make it look like we had a piece of pattern paper that went all the way across the page. So I wanted to then incorporate that same kind of cheetah print, but if you notice, we're a little more traditional in colors. And if you also notice, we've done it in layers so that you didn't have to glue on these little individual little shapes that make up that cheetah print. So every letter is going to be 3 layers. So 3 different layers for each, and it's always going to be the black. We're going to adhere to the cream. So we're going to adhere the black first to our cream. And if you're going to ask kind of how this is done in, we use Cricut, so we use Design Space. Sometimes I will design an image in Photoshop and then I will bring it into Cricut by making the SVG. Sometimes we do the actual designing right in Design Space, which is kind of what we've done here for both the border and the letters. It does, when we're doing letters like this, it does get a little more technical. So it's pretty far advanced to be able to do something like this. Less so to do the border. If you've heard or seen of Jennifer Maker, she has just an incredible amount of tutorials And all of these kind of little tricks and stuff for the Cricut, she really does a fabulous job. So if you're looking for extra tutoring in some of the more advanced areas of Cricut, I really think that's your go-to person. But if you prefer that all of the hard work is already done, of course you just have our kits. All right. So again, we're going the black to that. It's actually yellow. It looks a little cream, but the color name is yellow. So we're going black to that creamy yellow to the orange. Let me get that extra glue there. And then we're going to adhere it to the white. So again, every single, close that up just a little. Every single letter has 4 different layers. So luckily we did the word wild right, and not a much longer word. All right, halfway done. And I'm just kind of dotting those again, and you don't have to cover the entire surface. It's amazing when you look at just that, and then when you add the black layer, even just adding the black layer really makes a dramatic difference. And then when we add it to the orange, I just love the effect. So I know we're kind of rushing through to get all of these together, but taking the time to kind of watch that come alive as you add each layer. It's pretty crazy what a dramatic difference. How it takes, you know, they say it takes a village, how it takes all of those layers. So you use this technique if you don't have, like, you want to cut the word wild and you want to cut it out of a animal print, but say you don't have the animal print pattern paper that you need, because obviously this would be easier just to cut the WILD using an already made piece of pattern paper that is a cheetah print, right, versus what we're doing. So I just wanted to show you, just like here, say you wanted this cheetah print but you wanted it in a totally different color than it was designed. So this is how we can make it our own. Same here. So say we wanted to make a zebra print or an elephant print or an armadillo print, and we didn't have that piece of paper to cut those letters out of. And I love that challenge when we don't have something and I have the vision in my mind of what I want it to look like, I'm just gonna make it. So this shows you kind of the advanced version of that. Our border showed you a little more easy approach to that because you can just use the negative space of a cut, and that makes that a lot easier. This gets a little more tricky. But as always, if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a specific look I'm going for, we're going to find a way to design it and make it happen. All right, so once we have all of the wild down, and if you're still gluing those letters, it's perfectly okay. You'll be able to add everything here, and we can just hold off on those, adding those particular letters till very last if you need to. I'm going to adhere my D first. We did give you a shadow. So the shadow here that's going to serve as the mat, so you know exactly how the word wild is going to come together. So we're going to start with the last letter and work our way to the left. So we're going to start with the D and then LIW to create this effect here. So again, working backwards. I'm going to use my tape runner since they're quite large. At the end, I'm not using any 3D pop dots. We have a lot of layers here, So we have 4 that comprise the letter, and then we have our base layer. So that's 5 layers of paper sitting on 2 layers of paper. So I didn't use any pop dots, as that's a lot of kind of layers of paper already. All right. If you notice, I wanted a little extra visual interest because the word is wild. So to me, when I was using the word wild, I wanted it to look wild. I didn't want it to look perfectly lined up, like it was all neat in a row. I wanted the pattern, you know, the placing of the letters to fit the title. So that's why we kind of took a divot with the I, so that it looked a little more wild. All right, so now I'm going to put those aside and then bring my page over. And I'm going to go ahead and start layering. Now again, depending on your photos, you really could scrunch this. So if I pull out my just the base of our palm tree. Let's go ahead and adhere these 2 layers together for now. We're not going to put together the palm tree quite yet. We're going to go ahead, I can go ahead and add these 2 layers together. Again, you don't have to have a lot. We're just going to make sure we get the top and the bottom edges and then fill in lightly. All right. You also notice that our palm tree is not standard colors either. So just like our cheetah print isn't really the color cheetah print, the base of our palm tree is not really the base color of a true palm tree. Just because, you know, Mother Nature says that it has to be a certain color, we're playing with paper. It doesn't have to be that color. So don't forget when you're die cutting to, you know, obviously if you're using any kind of die cutting machine, it shows you the sample of the die cut, and it's usually true to color, right? The palm tree, the top is green and the base is brown. It doesn't mean you have to cut it that way. You can cut it in 162 different shades of color. So just remember that when you're die cutting. But if you have a lot of photos, I'm going to show you how you could really crunch this in together. You could even slip that underneath there like that. And we would still have space for this, but you would have space for another photo over here. So again, I would keep your title down here, but you can really scrunch all this in together if you need to. Because of the curve of our palm tree, I would keep it down in this lower left corner, because if you notice, the curve of our palm tree brings you back into your photos. So it's almost an arrow with our curve. So if you put your palm tree over here, it is going to not curve your eye into your photo. It is going to curve it right off the page. So we want to make sure we're going into our photo. So make sure that your palm tree is in the lower left or in the center. We just don't want it over here on the right. So again, even if you need to tighten up this space, you could do something like this, and then you could still add another photo here. All right, because the other side had banners, I'm just gonna, this really doesn't serve a purpose other than to really tie in all of the banners that are here. That way we have that, you know, that same visual element on both pages so that they tie in together. Really gives it that balanced design by utilizing it on both sides. So I'm going to adhere it just above our brown little strip here, that really thin one. And it's over, I don't know, an inch, 3/4 of an inch. Like that. And now we're going to put together our palm tree. So this really isn't your typical palm tree. So I took the base of a random palm tree in Design Space. And I really liked the base. However, I did not like the leaves, how they had them at the top. So what I have done is I have just cut various leaves, the palm leaves here, that match the same ones that we did over here, really tiny. And then I'm just making my own top. So this was just the base of one palm tree. It's just a standard, a standard image in Design Space. But I didn't like the top, so I'm not using the top, and I'm just going to use all of these to create my own. Does that make sense? All right, so I'm only going to do the spines because I like the loose edges. And we're just going to put them in a shape that we would think would make a palm tree. So there's no really right or wrong. You can make it blowing in the wind. Because of this is all individual elements, you can make it whatever shape you need. For me, I'm going to do the two on the side, the two lower ones and that taller one, and then fill in the middle. But again, you can do it absolutely however you want. Just remember, if you already have your photo mats down, we don't want to use adhesive on those photo mats because we want to be able to slip our photos in afterwards. So when it comes to this one, if you already have your photo mats down, see how much of that would overlap? I am just going to do the tip here. Like so. There we go. One more. And go all the way down the center spine of that one. All right, and then the center, so instead of coconuts, I am using flowers. Of course I am, right? I use flowers all the time. Now I'm going to use another set of pop dots. I know that makes it a double set of pop dots. So it would make it really thick. So it's totally up to you, because obviously this would really make it chunky. I really wanted to make it chunky. All right, so instead of my coconuts, there's my flowers. And again, that's so that we could visually tie back into what we did over here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the word wild and that sky blue flower at the same time. Since that flower kind of sticks underneath that lower right edge, I'm going to try to adhere them both together. So I'm just going to lightly put that in place so that I can slip this underneath. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the double 3D pop dot again. So now we just have a few little things to tidy up. And we're almost complete. 2 more pieces. I'm going to just slide this underneath here. And if you needed to scrunch all of this together, you could take this flower and put it somewhere totally different depending on where your photos were. So again, if all of this was kind of scrunched so that you could get another photo over here, you know, you might be able to put that flower up in here. It might be able to go, you know, in this area. I have it a little more spaced out because we have so much going on here. I wanted to be able to really space this out. But this is all about photos, right? The whole purpose of scrapbooking is to showcase our photos. So if you need to move it around to add more photos, that's exactly what you need to do. And I'm going to put this at a fun angle. You know what? That bottom portion there, I'm going to put a couple micro mini dots. Because we have so many layers in the word wild, I want to add just a few pop dots at just the very bottom so that that lays flat. Because it partially goes on the word wild. And it's really thick there. I'm going to peel those off. Whoops. Oh yeah, that'll lay much better. All right, can you believe it? Can you believe you actually managed to finish this spread? Pat yourself on the back. This one was a lot of pieces and a lot of techniques and a lot of pieces of paper, but I hope you're as pleased with the end result as I am. Both of the zoo-themed spreads that we have teaching for this virtual It's a Zoo in Here day has just been, they easily came together because I love the theme, I love the colors, so I hope you love this one too, and it was all worth the effort. All right, as always, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you, and happy scrapping.